Today, you'll learn the essential English phrases for overthinking and how to find your calm in a busy world.
Hello, everyone. We are so happy to be with you today. Before we dive into this deep and very relatable topic, please hit that subscribe button.
Your support truly is our strength and helps us keep these natural conversations going for learners around the world.
So, Liam, how are you really doing today? You look a bit tired.
Honestly, Lisa, I am. I had one of those nights where my brain simply wouldn't turn off. I was staring at the ceiling for 3 hours.
3 hours? Oh, I know that feeling all too well. Was it about your new book or just life in general?
Partially the book. I kept replaying a conversation I had with my editor 2 days ago. I started wondering if I sounded too defensive about my second chapter. I kept thinking, did he think I was being arrogant? Should I have just stayed quiet?
3 a.m. is the absolute worst time for that. In the US, we call that being stuck in your head. Your brain is basically holding you hostage.
It's the perfect phrase. I was dwelling on it for hours, imagining my editor was secretly disappointed in me. I was rewriting the conversation in my mind, trying to find a better version of myself.
And that's exactly what overthinking is, right? It's when your mind goes in circles and creates problems that don't even exist. It's not productive, it's just exhausting.
Precisely. It's like a song stuck in your head, but instead of a catchy melody, it's a chorus of worries that you can't turn down.
That's a great comparison. For our listeners, let's break down how to actually talk about this. Liam, how do you recognize the exact moment you transition from thinking to overthinking?
Well, for me, as a writer, the red flag is catastrophizing. I take one small critique and turn it into a total disaster.
Catastrophizing. That's such a powerful word for learners. It means jumping straight to the worst-case scenario without any evidence.
Exactly. I think my editor hates this chapter, so he hates the whole book, so my career is over and I'll end up living in a tent. It's a mountain made out of a molehill.
I do the same with social situations. If a friend doesn't reply to a text, I start spiraling. I think they're mad at me or I said something wrong at lunch. I'll spend an hour checking my phone every 2 minutes.
It's physically tiring, isn't it? Our imagination becomes our own worst enemy. We use so much mental energy on things that haven't even happened.
So how do we talk about it when we feel this way? I usually tell my friends, I'm probably overthinking this, but it's like a disclaimer.
That's a very natural way to start. It shows self-awareness. I might say, my mind is just going in circles today, or I'm ruminating on something that happened yesterday.
Ruminating. That's a great one. It reminds me of a cow chewing grass over and over. Your brain is just chewing on the same bad thought.
Precisely. Or I'll say, I need to get out of my head. I love that one because it implies you want to escape the trap of your own thoughts.
You know, Liam, social media makes this so much worse. The read receipt is like fuel for overthinkers.
Oh, don't even get me started. You see the blue tick, you know they've seen it, and then silence.
And then you start the digital detective work. They're online on Instagram, but they haven't replied to my WhatsApp. Why?
Ghosting or soft ghosting. It's a modern nightmare for people who analyze every detail. We are reading too much into it.
Reading too much into it. I love that phrase. You're looking for a hidden meaning in a missing emoji or a slightly different tone.
Exactly. My brain becomes a detective, searching for clues that simply aren't there. Did they use a period at the end of thanks? That sounds so cold.
I've literally had a 20-minute conversation with a friend about whether a period in a text meant the person was angry. It's analysis paralysis at its peak.
It really is. We analyze the silence until we are paralyzed and afraid to send another message.
That's why we need to discuss how to find our calm, because if we don't, we just stay in that loop forever. Liam, what's the first thing you do when you realize you're spiraling?
I try to name the trap. I tell myself, Liam, you are catastrophizing right now. Giving it a label takes away some of its power.
Awareness is 50% of the solution. Once you name it, it becomes a behavior you can change, not just a fact of life.
Another thing I do is ask myself, will this matter in a year or even in a month?
That's a great perspective shifter. Most of the things that keep us awake at 3 a.m. are completely forgotten by the following Tuesday.
Exactly. We spend so much emotional capital on things that are ultimately unimportant.
In the UK, you guys have that famous stiff upper lip thing. Does that help with overthinking, or does it make it worse?
It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it keeps you calm on the outside. On the other hand, it can trap the worries inside because you feel like you shouldn't complain or show emotion.
In the US, we're almost the opposite. We love to talk it out. We're very open about anxiety in therapy.
I actually admire that. In the UK, we're getting better at it, but there's still a tendency to bottle it up.
Bottle it up. That's a great idiom. Like a soda bottle that you keep shaking until it explodes.
Exactly. Talking to a friend, being direct is often the fastest way to stop the overthinking loop.
But even for us, work is a huge trigger. Let's talk about analysis paralysis in the office.
Oh, that's where the internal editor is most active. I can spend an hour polishing a 3-sentence email.
Why do we do that? Are we afraid of sounding unprofessional or making a tiny grammar mistake?
It's the perfectionism trap. We think that if everything is perfect, we are safe from criticism.
But perfectionism is just overthinking in a fancy suit. It doesn't actually protect us, it just slows us down.
Wow, Lisa. Perfectionism is overthinking in a fancy suit. That needs to be on a t-shirt. It's so true. It prevents us from just doing it.
Right. For English learners, this is the biggest obstacle. They overthink the grammar so much that they stop talking entirely.
They are overanalyzing the rules instead of enjoying the conversation. I always tell my students, communication over perfection.
Communication over perfection. I love that. It's a way to find calm in a language lesson. Just let the mistakes happen.
Exactly. Good enough is often better than perfect and late.
Let's get into some real practical strategies. You mentioned the worry window. How do you actually set that up without feeling silly?
I literally set a timer on my phone for 15 minutes. During that time, I am I am encouraged to worry about everything.
So you just sit there and worry?
I write it down. I have a notebook just for worries. All right, my editor thinks I'm boring. I'm going to run out of money. I forgot to buy milk.
And what happens when the timer goes off?
I close the book. If a worry pops up later, I tell my brain, sorry, you missed your appointment. The window is closed until 4 p.m. tomorrow.
That is so British. You're literally giving your worries an appointment.
It works. It gives the thoughts a place to go so they don't have to live in my head all day.
I use something more active called a brain dump. I write everything down on a piece of paper, but then I physically crumble it up and throw it away.
That's very satisfying. The physical action of discarding the thought.
It really is. It's like telling my brain, this is trash, I'm done with it.
Another strategy I love is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. Can you walk us through that, Lisa?
Sure, it's a grounding exercise. When you're spiraling, you stop and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
Let's try it right now. I see my tea, my notebook, the window, a pen, and you.
I touch my coffee mug, my desk, my sweater, and my hair.
It forces your brain to come back to the physical reality of the present moment.
Exactly. Overthinking lives in the future or the past. Grounding brings you back to the now.
Which is the core of mindfulness. It sounds like a big mystical word, but it's really just about being present.
It's about noticing the steam from your tea instead of the voice in your head.
And accepting that it is what it is. That phrase is a lifesaver for me.
It is what it is. It's about accepting things you cannot change. You can't change the email you already sent, so why worry?
Precisely. We often beat ourselves up for things that are already in the past.
Beating yourself up. That's such a descriptive idiom. It means being your own harshest critic.
We need to practice self-compassion. We should talk to ourselves like we would talk to a dear friend.
Right. If a friend came to you with a worry, you wouldn't say, you're so stupid for worrying about that.
Never. I'd say, I hear you, it sounds stressful, but you're doing your best.
Why is it so much harder to say that to ourselves?
Because we live inside our own minds. We see every ugly thought we have, whereas we only see the polished version of others.
That's a deep insight, Liam. We compare our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel.
Exactly. And that comparison leads to more overthinking. Why is Sam so calm? Why am I a mess?
Sam probably isn't calm. He's just better at the stiff upper lip than you are.
Probably. Everyone is struggling with something. Realizing that makes me feel less alone.
Let's talk about the what if monster. What if I fail? What if they don't like me?
I combat the what if with even if.
Even if? Tell me more about that.
Instead of saying, what if I fail, I say, even if I fail, I will learn something and I will be okay.
Oh, I love that. It takes the power away from the disaster. You're planning for resilience, not just avoiding failure.
Exactly. It turns a threat into a plan.
Now, for our listeners, let's do a little conversation practice. How do you talk to someone else who is overthinking?
That's important. You shouldn't just say, stop overthinking. That's the most annoying thing you can say.
Totally. It's like telling a person who is drowning to just swim better.
Instead, you can say, I can see you're really stuck in your head today. Do you want to talk it out?
Or, it sounds like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. Want to go for a walk and get some fresh air?
Fresh air is a literal cure for an overactive mind. Movement changes your state.
And if they're really spiraling, you can ask, what's the one thing you can do right now to feel 1% better?
1% better. That's so much more manageable than trying to solve the whole problem.
Sometimes the answer is just drinking a glass of water or taking a nap.
Napping is a writer's best friend. When the brain is fried from overthinking, sleep is the only reset button.
But what if you can't sleep because of the overthinking, the classic nighttime loop?
That's when I use the notebook method. I keep a pad by my bed and write down every single thought that's keeping me awake.
And that helps?
It tells my brain, I have recorded this. I won't forget it. Now we can sleep.
I also like listening to white noise or rain sounds. It gives the brain something neutral to focus on.
It's about crowding out the worries with something peaceful.
So, Liam, we've shared our personal stories, but I want our listeners to know how to actually talk about this. If I'm at work and I feel like I'm overanalyzing a project, what's a professional way to say that?
That's a brilliant point, Lisa. In a meeting, you shouldn't say, my brain is spiraling, because it's a bit too emotional for the office. Instead, try using, I think I'm overcomplicating this.
Overcomplicating. I love that. It sounds like you were focused on the task, not just your feelings.
Exactly. It shows you are looking for a solution. You could also say, I'd like to take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
That is so useful for a professional setting. Now, what about with friends? I usually say, I'm really in my head today. Is that common in the UK too?
It is. We also say, I'm in a bit of a muddle. It means your thoughts are messy and confused.
In a muddle. That's a very British way to put it. So for a conversation starter, someone could say, I'm probably overthinking this, but I wanted to talk.
Yes, that's the perfect buffer. It tells the other person you know you might be worrying too much, which makes it easier for them to help you.
Let's look at another situation, decision fatigue, like standing in front of 20 types of olive oil for 10 minutes.
Only 10 minutes? I can spend half an hour in a bookstore deciding between two novels while worrying if I'm wasting time.
That is the definition of faffing about, isn't it? You're overanalyzing the cost of your time, and that actually costs you more time.
It's a paradox, Lisa. We want to make the best choice, but there often isn't one. There are just different choices.
My therapist once said, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
That's powerful. In the UK, we often say, it'll do. It means it's good enough to move forward.
It'll do. I need to say that more often, especially when I'm stuck in the comparison trap. Liam, does social media make your overthinking worse?
Without a doubt. You see a perfect life on Instagram and feel like you're failing compared to their external highlight reel.
Highlight reel. That's a key term. We only see the best 1% of people's lives online, but we compare it to 100% of our own struggles.
Totally. It leads to status anxiety. I have to remind myself that everyone is faking it a little, even that perfect person on your screen.
Totally. They probably overthought their caption for an hour. We call that imposter syndrome in the US.
We use that in the UK too. I feel it every time I start a new book. I think, this is the time everyone realizes I have no idea what I'm doing.
Even after your success? That's wild. It sounds like the spotlight effect, where we think everyone is looking at our mistakes.
But everyone is actually busy looking at their own. Nobody cares about my awkward comment as much as I do.
Now, let's do some conversation practice. If I'm spiraling about a work email, how would you talk me down?
Good idea. Okay, Lisa, you look stressed. What's up?
I sent that email to the director, but I forgot the attachment.
I've been dwelling on it for an hour. I think he'll think I'm incompetent.
Lisa, stop right there. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Everyone forgets attachments. Just send a quick follow-up.
But what if he thinks I'm not detail-oriented?
That's just the what-if monster talking. What's one thing you can do right now to feel 1% better?
I suppose I could just send the file now with a short apology.
Exactly. Action creates confidence. Overthinking just creates more doubt. Once you hit send, the loop is broken.
You're right. Action over analysis. That's a great mantra. See? That's how you talk someone out of a spiral.
It works. You can also use phrases like, it's not as bad as you think, or use the even-if strategy for yourself.
Even if. Instead of what if I fail, I should say, even if I fail, I will learn and be okay. It turns a threat into a plan.
We should also mention the physical side. When you overthink, I notice you get very tense, Lisa.
Oh, absolutely. My shoulders go up to my ears. I need a manual override, like box breathing.
You take control of the hardware, your body, because the software, your mind, is glitching.
System reset. I love that comparison. We've covered so much today, Liam.
I hope our listeners now have a mental toolbox to help them find calm. Remember, you don't have to use all these phrases. Just pick one.
Next time you're spiraling at 2 a.m., try the worry window, or just say, it is what it is.
Progress over perfection. Always.
For our question of the day, what is one thing you overthink the most, and which technique from today will you try first?
Let us know in the comments. Your stories help us feel less alone in our own muddles.
If this helped you find some calm, please share it with a friend. Let's get out of our heads and back into our lives.
I'm ready for that tea now. No more internal editor for today.
And I'm ready for my coffee. See you in the next episode, everyone.
Goodbye and take care of your beautiful minds.
Take a deep breath. Bye.